right now I think it's let's focus less on what the overall arching teams did and just the individual deals, what was good, what was bad. All right, so profootballfocus.com, your deal grader, what was our top elite deal, the one we liked the best?
I think the two deals that we currently have in the elite band are both safety signings, and there are two different ends of the scale. One, the Packers signed a young, up-and-coming safety, Adrian Amos, to a 4-year deal. And Amos is the prototypical example of a guy that PFF rates higher than the general perception, and it's for a good reason. It's easily explained. Everybody wants the safeties to be the guy that's picking off 7 interceptions a year, making the splash plays.
Like his teammate,
They want them to be a playmaker at the safety position. But ultimately, the clue is in the name for safety. As safeties are the guys that prevent things going wrong, not necessarily the ones making plays on the back end. It's not necessarily about the plays you make. It's the big plays you prevent from happening by not screwing up. And Amos is really good at not screwing up. He doesn't miss many tackles. He's always in the right place. He's a good tackler. He's a safety valve for the defense. And I think that results in him playing a lot better than his sort of highlight reel would suggest when compared to some of these other guys.
I can hear Bears fans right now saying, well, what about this play? And what about that play? And every safety is going to miss plays, and that's the nature of the position. You're going to remember the bad ones. The number I pulled out the other day that I tweeted, though, the last 2 years, Adrian Amos has been in the top 5 in our play-by-play grading at avoiding negatively graded plays. He ranked 5th back-to-back years, 2017 and 18. The difference in 2018 is he cut down on his positively graded plays, which was actually high in 2017 as well. The guy I like to compare him to a little bit is Devin McCourty through the years. McCourty was never mentioned in the Earl Thomas, Ed Reed discussion, even early in his career when they were talking about safeties, because those guys make the highlight reel flash plays. McCourty has a handful of those plays throughout his career, but he was always just the sure tackler, in the right position, no coverage busts, a safe safety. Deron Harmon, his teammate in New England, the same guy right now. Doesn't make a ton of plays, just doesn't screw up.
And I think if you put someone like Amos on the Patriots, the perception of them would change dramatically from, just a guy to
I agree.
A really key, vital part of that machine.
So we think that's what Green Bay is getting in Adrian Amos. The other guy you mentioned was Eric Weddle. We did discuss him a little bit on Monday, but we said, hey, it's a really good deal because he's a guy who's, even though he's 34, can still play. 2-year, $12.5 million deal, $6.3 million guaranteed. That's somewhat low risk for a guy of Weddle's quality, even this late in his career.
Yeah, and he still remains a versatile safety that can line up all over the defense and has been a really good player at. It's a cliche, and it's one of those things that PFF can't really measure yet. But this idea of guys making everyone else around them better because they're good communicators on the field, they're able to get everyone lined up in the right spot, everyone understands the adjustments they need to make whenever something happens on the field. Weddle is fantastic at that. He will make the rest of the Rams coverage unit better because he's on the field and he's able to get them all on the same page. That's a valuable thing. And in addition to that, he's still grading really well. Last year's grade was 80.7. That's a top 10 position at safety. If he was 23 years old, we'd be talking about one of the best prospects, one of the best young safeties in the NFL because he's come from a position where he was the number 1 safety in the NFL. It's seen as a little bit of a decline, but it's still really good.
Yeah, that's the thing. You can find value in declining players if they're still above the rest of the league, and that's essentially where Weddle is at this point. All right, those are the two that we gave elite grades over at profootballfocus.com. What about very good? The top one I'm looking at here is Tre Flowers going to the Lions. He's only 26 years old. He has continued to improve year over year. Good against the run, but more importantly, he can get after the quarterback, and he's going to do it in a scheme that he's familiar with Matt Patricia in Detroit.
Yeah, the Midwest New England Patriots.
Yeah. Well, one of the things about free agency that makes it so hit or miss is you generally are taking a player from a different environment, putting him somewhere else, and a lot of times teams put players in situations they're either not familiar with or it's just not their strength. And while it's probably overrated to just get guys that you are familiar with, there is something to be said for we assume Tre Flowers is going from New England to Detroit, where he's going to play essentially the same role, move around the defensive line like he did in New England, and take advantage of that versatility.
Yeah, I mean, the flip side of that is we've said this for years, that there's also a flurry of moves that happen essentially just because a guy coached a guy in the past. And now he's coaching somewhere else, and he brings in all the players that he was familiar with his previous destination and or players that he played against
Right.
and did really well against them. Therefore, this guy's amazing. Let's bring him in. So,
but in this case, if a guy graded well for us, we like the move because
Right.
we're essentially going to see him in the same
Tre
role.
Flowers stays within the same system, having Matt Patricia, of course, having been his defensive coordinator a while ago. He now goes into that system, becomes really this primary source of pass rush on a defensive line that's really good against the run and won't get any worse against the run with Tre Flowers there, but doesn't have a huge amount of pass rushing skill amongst their top quality linemen. So it'll be interesting to see how much of that Tre Flowers can bring and also how much he moves around, because one of his great assets for the Patriots was that he would line up everywhere. He would be out wide. He would be lined up as a nose tackle, head up over the center, and anywhere in between, and he could rush the passer from all of those spots. The Lions have a bunch of guys inside. So are they going to keep him outside 100% of the time? And if they do, does that diminish part of what he brings to the table?
No, you know what I think this does?
Yeah?
It's going to hurt Pat Elfline's grade even further.
Oh, no.
So Elfline, who has struggled in our grading, has had a difficult job, right? He's had to go up. You got Akeem Hicks of the Bears, and you've got big snacks in the run game in Detroit. You have all those interior rushers in Green Bay, Kenny Clark, Mike Daniels. Well, now, not only he's going to have big snacks on running downs, and then he's going to have Tre Flowers head up, zero tech nose. Tre Flowers has one of the most versatile pass rush set moves from zero tech in the league. He's got a whole variety of moves. So that just, it's going to hurt Pat Elfline.
Oh, poor Pat.
That's my answer. I think Tre Flowers is a good move. Let's move on. You mentioned Cameron Wake earlier in the show. The Titans are going to sign him to a 3-year, $23 million deal, $10 million guaranteed. He's like 80 years old. How is this a good move at 3 years, $23 million?
Because he's still really productive.
I know he is.
He may be a player who's started to decline slightly, but he's still crazy productive and still really athletic, explosive. You're not looking at him and saying, well, there's a guy that's lost a couple of steps
Right.
and is just getting by on veteran savvy. He's still beating tackles with speed, athleticism, explosion. He still basically looks like Cameron Wake. And this is a team, the Titans, that have had some good pass rushers themselves start to age and become less effective. They've got Harold Landry there from last year. They can bring in Cameron Wake. That should give them a duo of pretty impressive edge rushers.
Number 11 pass rush grade at the position last year, 81.1.
So if Detroit is Midwest Patriots and Miami is the Southern Patriots, South Patriots.
This is the Mid-South.
Mid-South?
Nashville's the Mid-South.
Mid-South.
Yep.
Mid-South Patriots.
There used to be old Mid-South Wrestling. It was in Memphis, right down the street from
there you
Nashville.
go.
So
Okay.
it's the Mid-South. Mid-South Patriots signed Cameron Wake from the Dolphins, really trying to confuse things. Yeah. This is the AFC East Titans. The Arizona Cardinals signed Jordan Hicks to a 4-year, $36 million deal. That's $12 million guaranteed. Another one of those deals. It looks a bit like a bargain knowing what we know about Hicks on the field. When he's out there, he's been fantastic as far as, especially in coverage. Arizona needs good coverage linebackers. It's just a big injury question mark with Hicks, but we like the deal because you're just weighing that injury risk. You're getting it's a pretty good risk to take.
It's like how much money should a significant injury risk take off a contract? That's basically what you're asking with Jordan Hicks. His coverage is excellent, and that's what you need for linebackers, off-the-ball linebackers in today's NFL. The lowest coverage grade for a season he's had was 71.5, which is still above average for linebackers.
He works. He gets depth in zones and makes plays on the ball. Also makes the plays in front of him. That's just a good combination in coverage.
Yeah.
So we like that move. Jordan Hicks to the Cardinals. The Raiders make our good list. There's a lot on the good list, by the way, Sam, so we've got to continue to fly through this.
Oh, rapid fire? Yeah, we're good at that.
Yeah. Raiders sign LaMarcus Joyner, 4 years, $42 million, $16.7 million guaranteed. The big thing here, I think, is the scheme fit. LaMarcus Joyner paired with Carl Joseph to be interchangeable safeties in the 2-4-6 scheme that Paul Gunther likes to run over there.
And they're going to be absolutely fine unless somebody that's 5'11" or taller comes on the field.
So there's some short safeties. It's all right. He's a solid player.
He is. Yeah, no, it's a good move. It was a joke, Steve. Chill.
I get offended when
being
people
funny.
make fun of short players.
You do? Yeah.
I
You
defend
have a
them.
particular sensitive spot for those challenged in height.
It's ironical, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
I think Joyner's a good move. I like Joseph. He hasn't quite realized his potential yet, but we've seen flashes of the player he can be. I think LaMarcus Joyner, again, he's a player that can bring some versatility to that because he's a slot corner in the past, and therefore, has the ability to man up in the slot against tight ends, against wide receivers if needs be. And that kind of versatility is important for defenses today who have to run. You're not talking about a Tampa 2 defense anymore. You're talking about a team that runs 2, 4, 6. You need to be able to run 3 or 4 different coverages, coverage shells.
You're going to be one-on-one with wide receivers at times.
Right.
You're going to be one-on-one with tight ends, whether you like it or not. I mean, that's just the nature of the position. Yeah. So having that coverage ability is important. The other one that we liked, or another one that we liked, the Bills signed Ty Nsekhe to a 2-year, $14.5 million deal, $7.7 million guaranteed. Nsekhe, it feels like the guy that nobody in the podcast has ever heard of, except maybe Washington Redskins fans, because he's just been a swing tackle for the Redskins over the last few years. Every time he's had an opportunity, for the most part, played pretty well, whether at left tackle or right tackle. And I keep joking that the best ability is availability. That's truly what the NFL believes when they're re-signing some of these offensive linemen. We'll get to the bad moves in a minute. But just because you've got 4 years of bad play but you started doesn't mean that you need to have a long-term deal. I would rather spend the money on a guy like Nsekhe, who's never been a starter. That's a concern. Never done it for a full season. But when he's been out there, he's been pretty good. I'd much rather take that risk than a guy that I've seen play poorly over an extended period of time. So that's why we like this deal.
Yeah, I think at the very, very minimum, the worst case scenario is he will be the best swing tackle in the NFL again, which is what he's been for the past couple of years, and that's good, right? It would be on the expensive end of swing tackle money, but it's not exactly a bad move if you secure the best backup swing tackle in the NFL and a guy who can play guard, etc. in a pinch. You're backing up almost your entire offensive line and getting way better as a result. Better case scenario, he's able to come in and start and upgrade one of your tackle spots. And the only thing I think that makes it a little bit of a question mark is that when he's been forced to start, I think he's looked better at left tackle than right tackle, and those aren't interchangeable. Some guys are left-sided players, some guys are right-sided players. It's not necessarily a given that you can just go one side or the other. But he's looked really good when he started at left tackle. Last season, he got a start against Atlanta, allowed just 2 hurries over the entire game. But that's the one tackle spot where I think Buffalo would feel reasonably confident with Deion Dawkins there. He's probably got a shot to start at right tackle, where I don't think he's been as good. Check out this list of teams, though, that he's played for.
Starting with the Arena League, right?
Yes. This is a guy who was undrafted in 2009. First team, the Corpus Christi Sharks, who were a 2007 expansion member of the AF2.
Oh, the AF2.
Then
started with Arena 2. That's Arena 2.
Then we got an upgrade to the Dallas Vigilantes, who were an AFL team. Philadelphia Soul. That's Jaws.
Yeah, Jaws is involved.
And Bon Jovi, right? This is all kinds of weird people that own the Soul.
Then on Bon Jovi?
No.
Okay.
Then the San Antonio Talons, who didn't exist the last time I watched any Arena Football League.
Okay.
Then the Indianapolis Colts, Rams, Saints, Montreal Alouettes. So we took a step back.
Okay.
Then the Redskins. Then the Los Angeles Kiss, who apparently were an AFL team as well.
What, he went from the Redskins to the Kiss?
Yes. Then back to the Redskins. And now the Bills.
I love it. The stick-to-itiveness.
That's quite a journey.
He's 33 years old.
He's also 6'8".
Yeah.
Another tall guy like you, Steve.
I love it. I love a good tall guy that sticks with it.
Right.
Yeah. So $14.5 million deal. Good job, Nsekhe, based off of all that you went through. Happy for the guy. The next deal to break down, Brown signed Sheldon Richardson, 3 years, $39 million, $21.5 million guaranteed. You talk about filling needs. Interior pass rush in Cleveland. Help from Myles Garrett and Olivier Vernon. Love this.
By the way, Nsekhe, that's 11 teams before the age of 33. One of them twice. That's quite impressive.
That is impressive.
Richardson, yeah.
And now the Bills.
Yeah. I was counting the Bills.
Oh, gotcha.
Richardson, I really like as a move. The Browns rebuilt the entire defensive line. I've been saying a couple of times, basically to anyone that'll listen, Steve. That's what I do. Get an idea in my head, and I'll just parrot it to people.
I know. I hear it all day.
Right?
I hear you say the same stuff. Oh, it's fine.
It's usually the different people, though, to my credit. You just happen to be in the vicinity every time.
I'm like saying the same thing as you.
Right. And that's, it's unfortunate, but I don't care.
Why do people think we don't like each other?
It's hard to tell.
I don't know.
So I've been saying that with the exception of firing everybody midway through it. This has basically been a textbook example on how to rebuild a franchise for the Browns, right? You take a team that's in a mess, you gut it, you completely take it down to bare bones, you build up a ton of draft capital in doing so, you build up a ton of salary cap space in doing so, you basically turn the thing into a skeleton of a franchise until you get the quarterback. And when you get the quarterback, you secure Baker Mayfield, you get the franchise guy that immediately changes everything you're capable of. Now you can deploy all of that resource that you built up.
Build around him.
And immediately build around him. Not just like put this together over a few years so we're still in the window by the time this team is good. No, we blitz and we get the entire team built around him in like 12 months because we have a ton of money. We have a ton of draft capital. We can do this quickly because we now have the quarterback. So now all of a sudden, Baker Mayfield heading into year 2 is on a team that is the Vegas favorite to take the division for the first time ever.
Ever.
It wasn't the AFC North the last time the Browns were favored to win it. The Houston Oilers were still in the division the last time.
It was the AFC Central.
Right. The last time the Browns were favored to win it. The Oilers were in existence.
The Jaguars didn't even exist.
Right. This predates the Jaguars as a franchise. And in fact, the Browns, if you wanted. Anyway.
True.
People get mad at that.
Don't.
No.
Browns fans love us right now.
It's really this perfect rebuilding project, and part of it is Sheldon Richardson. So they're able to take on those big contracts like Olivier Vernon, who, a team like the Giants don't want to pay that. They think he's overpaid. The Browns probably know he's overpaid as well, but they say, well, he's good, and we have the money, so who cares?
Yeah, right.
So we'll take him on for a couple of years. Sheldon Richardson, they're able to bring in. And again, Richardson is one of these guys that is a flawed player. You look at Richardson, and the story that sums him up is really the start of last year. Best grade of his season came week 1 for the Minnesota Vikings. Mike Zimmer thinks, we got a steal. We robbed the Seahawks of this guy. This guy is going to be one of the best interior players in the entire NFL. Dominant performance, 7 total pressures. He's going to be a wrecking machine in our defense alongside Linval, Everson Griffin, Donnell Hunter. And then we don't really see that guy again for the rest of the year. Now,
he did that the year before. He had 6 pressures week 1 for Seattle against Green Bay.
This is Sheldon Richardson. You're going to get the occasional game where he shows up and really wants to show he's a dominant force, and he is. And the rest of the time, you're going to get 80% of Sheldon Richardson. But 80% of Sheldon Richardson is still a really good player. And he has averaged 47 total pressures every year for his career. That figure would rank second on last year's Cleveland Browns behind only Myles Garrett. So suddenly you've added 2 different players who would each have ranked second on the Browns last year in terms of total pressures, and you're adding them to Myles Garrett. It's a completely different proposition in terms of what offenses are now looking at.
Yeah, I mean, when you come into the offseason with a major hole, like we need to get Myles Garrett some help, and you can plug in Sheldon Richardson, Olivier Vernon, it's huge to be able to make that move quickly. We see the 49ers maybe having the ability to revamp their pass rush in 1 year as well. I love what you're describing about Sheldon Richardson, though, because I feel like we're quantifying takes plays off. We're quantifying inconsistent motor, whatever it is, because our number is going to account for every snap. And as long as the final number is more good than bad,
right,
then you kind of deal with the plays off or the off weeks or whatever it is. I mean, that's the thing. Because if you just say, well, he takes plays off, I don't want him, maybe you're missing a guy that's more productive than the guy that works really hard. Like David Parry gets after it every single play, but he can't get after the quarterback.
Why you got to go to David Parry?
Just the first guy that came to mind. I know you're a David Parry apologist, but I'm just saying, David Parry at 100% is not going to rush the passer as well as Sheldon Richardson at 50%. So,
right,
run those odds.
I mean, with Sheldon Richardson last year, you have 3 games with 6 or more total pressures. I mean, those are Von Miller kind of numbers.
Yeah, those are huge games.
6 or more is a huge amount of production for a pass rusher. You've also got 4 games with 1 or fewer total pressures. 2 games with 0. So, that kind of speaks to this inconsistency. You've got that first game, which was basically a 90 overall grade, and then the next highest games are high 70s. So you just have to live with the idea that, we're going to get a guy who has more talent than he's going to show every single week.